there, welcome to episode 171 of the WaveBack Music Podcast. My name is Kris.
And I'm Matt.
And we're here to listen to the most interesting video game music there is. Donkey Kong Country for the Super NES was a monumental achievement, particularly in terms of sound design. But what happens when you try to cram something so technologically advanced into a tiny Game Boy cartridge? That's what today's game is all about. Make a bet with a geriatric ape, because today we listen to the music of Donkey Kong Land for Game Boy. Well, hello there, Matt.
Hello there, Kris.
How the heck are you?
I'm pretty good. How's everything with you?
Not too shabby. I tweaked my back yesterday, so
Fantastic.
that's just one of the joys of being old. And just got back from taking the dogs for their respective walks. One dog's gonna be upset he's not getting his afternoon walk today because it's gonna be disgusting outside here this afternoon.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty bad up here too. So we'll see.
Expecting lots of rain, lots of wind, and I'm not walking the dog in that. he can poop in the backyard, like the rest of us.
I wish I had that option.
All right, city living.
Yeah, buddy.
Phenomenal cosmic power, itty-bitty living space.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing as being a genie.
I wish.
Waka waka.
The jokes don't get any funnier, I'm sorry.
Oh boy. Well, let's go ahead and let's get our monkey on, shall we?
Yes, let's shall.
All right, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Hit us with some history.
Certainly. Donkey Kong Land was released for the Game Boy in June 1995 and serves as the first sequel to the Super NES classic Donkey Kong Country. It also features one of the greatest plots in video game history. Following the enormous success of the original Donkey Kong Country, Cranky Kong, the first game's curmudgeonly elder ape, lets Donkey and Diddy Kong know that he thinks the only reason the first game was so successful was because of its amazing graphics and sound. And that if you took away all the fancy technology, they'd never be able to star in a successful game like he did back in his day. Taking the bait, DK and Diddy said they could absolutely star in a game on an 8-bit machine like the Game Boy, so Cranky called up K. Rool, or Cruel, and told him to steal the Banana Horde again so the youngsters could prove their mettle on the vastly underpowered Game Boy. Where the Donkey Kong Land sequels played out like adaptations of their 16-bit brethren, Donkey Kong Land is actually a completely unique game with new locales and enemies only seen in this adventure. The game was a moderate success, though critics and players did lament the altered physics and difficult-to-understand visuals, as some serious sacrifices had to be made in order to get the pre-rendered sprites up and running on Nintendo's monochrome handheld.
The game's music, though, was almost universally acclaimed, which is no surprise considering its source. Famed rare musician David Wise was once again on tap, but this time he partnered with newcomer Graham Norgate, whose first game with the company was Killer Instinct, partnered with Robert Beanland, and eventually went on to compose for the likes of GoldenEye 007, Perfect Dark, and the Time Splitters series. David Wise, of course, is known for his work on Donkey Kong Country, as well as a number of other classics like Wizards and Warriors, Snake Rattle and Roll, and modern hits like Yooka-Laylee and The Impossible Lair. Matt, I know you have experience with Donkey Kong Country. Do you have any experience with Donkey Kong Land?
It's not ringing any bells, honestly. I don't think I've ever actually played it. Yeah.
I was a massive Donkey Kong Country fan.
No, not you.
I was so taken aback with that game. I was obsessed with it. So when a Game Boy version came out and I could take it with me everywhere I went, I flipped my lid. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. And when I remember getting the game and my mom driving me home from Toys R Us and whipping out the instruction manual and reading that completely insane story and laughing my head off. Like, what nonsense is this? I actually have my copy right here. Because it came with the banana yellow cartridge, which was super cool. Mm-hmm. But reading that story about Cranky Kong being like a Yeah, no, you guys suck, and you guys couldn't possibly succeed in a Game Boy game. And then being like, yeah, I bet we could do it on Game Boy. And he's like, all right, I'll call King K. Rool on the phone and tell him to steal your bananas again. You can do it all over again, but this time you're going to new places. I just thought it was fascinating, and seeing all the coverage in Nintendo Power with the new enemies, the new locations. Like, I couldn't get enough of this world, and seeing it expanded on like this was utterly fascinating, especially because it really does play out like a direct follow-up to Donkey Kong Country. Like, the first world has you on like the map screen has Gangplank Galleon, K. Rool's ship on there. Like, you have to do a level on his ship because it's still basically parked, where he left it. And you just go through all these new places like Kremlantis and Monkey Mountain, the Big Ape City. Like, it's just so cool. And I played the heck out of this game, even though it was very difficult to play on the Game Boy itself, because the graphics didn't really translate that well to black and white, super low resolution dot matrix screens. Like, they just didn't. But you can't help but respect the effort that went into making it happen at all. I was able to play through the game best on Super Game Boy, so I could play it on my TV. But even then, it was still difficult to see certain things while playing the game. But and there was a bunch of cool cut content, like a handful of characters they showed off a bunch when promoting this game in various magazines never showed up in the game. Like, there's this one that they used the most. Like, it was he was used twice in this huge double-page spread in Nintendo Power. He's enormous, and he's like this ape in a fedora, and he's not in the game, and nobody knows anything about him. He's just known as Ape in Fedora. Like, it's just so weird. But it's a really fun game, and I love its music because you can really hear a lot of the 8-bit David Wise influences. So, like, as we go through this, if you're familiar with, like, the Wizards and Warriors and Iron Sword soundtracks or Battletoads, you hear a lot of that in a lot of these different songs, but it's also pretty Donkey Kong Country flavored. So when I picked the track list for this, I tried to pick all the songs that weren't just 8-bit renditions of Donkey Kong Country songs. Like, some of them, like, we opened the episode on Bonus Blitz, which is, this game's version of Bonus Blitz from Donkey Kong Country, and there's, I think I included one or two. Like, Reef Rampage is a really interesting 8-bit take on aquatic ambience, and I think the rest of them I ignored in favor of, well, I guess Deck Trek is sort of a play on Gangplank Galleon, but it's actually a pretty unique song in its own right. But other than that, these are all original songs composed for this game by Graham Norgate and David Wise, which is a really great combo. So, without further ado, let's get started. Yes, first song that we'll be listening to is a rather short one, but it's one of those songs that just really sticks with me, and it's got that perfect, I don't know if it's a personal nostalgia thing, but it has this perfect menu 8-bit music sound to it. It's a file select tune, and it's, as soon as you start up the game, you select which file you're playing with, and it's a really short tune, but I just think it's incredibly catchy. So here is File Select from Donkey Kong Land. Enjoy. Song from Donkey Kong Land. And now this is the second song you actually hear after you turn on the game. If you turn on the game, you'll hear the title screen music first, which is actually going to be the last song of the episode because the title screen music doubles as the end credits music. So that's what you guys will hear when playing out. But getting into the game, this is such a really good... it does a good job of setting the stage for the kind of game that you're about to be playing. It's a Donkey Kong game, and you can kind of already hear that sort of joyous, that joyous overall feeling to it. How did this one make you feel?
I dig it a lot. I kind of hate when something so good is so short, but at the same time, it kind of I don't know. Maybe it's good that it's short because it is such a short little loop.
Yeah.
To your point, it definitely keeps the overall vibe of Donkey Kong, like the Rareware Donkey Kong, because they attempted to make it hip and cool, and so there's elements of like hip hop. So there's definitely like I don't know how to say it, but there's definitely like a flair of hip hop in that. And you're right, yeah, it definitely does give you a little window into what you're about to get into. So I'm a big fan of that. When you when you go to see like a Broadway show or something, you get the overture at the beginning, and it's a bit of all the music, and you're like, all right, let's do this. So yeah, it's a really cool little ditty.
Yeah. All right, so of course the first level of the game is a jungle stage, and it's a rendition of the Donkey Kong Country jungle theme that you hear repeatedly throughout the course of various Donkey Kong adventures. So we're skipping that one in favor of the next original song that you hear, which is Freezing Fun. One of the earliest stages in the game is actually in the Freezing Mountains, similar to some of the later stages in Donkey Kong Country. So this one, you can really hear, this reminds me so much of specific tracks in Wizards and Warriors. Like, I hear Wizards and Warriors in this quite a bit. This track's called, as far as I know, is called Freezing Fun. It's an excellent song. Enjoy. Alright, that was Freezing Fun. And I think it's like the kind of the staccato notes, like where the bass line stops being held out and starts just really hitting just these tight little notes. I think that's what really reminds me a lot of Wizards and Warriors. Like, I can just see Kyros bouncing around to this music in my head for some reason. But I really like this song a lot, and this is also pretty emblematic of the game's soundtrack. Similar to Donkey Kong Country, it's fun, but it also takes itself pretty seriously. Like, there's some just genuinely impressive compositions running throughout the course of this game that can be kind of ambient and just really, really good at setting the mood. And it can be a much harder thing to do on something as limited as the Game Boy, whereas the Donkey Kong Country stuff all sounds very, very high quality instruments. This is chiptunes. This is bleeps and bloops. So that they're able to do what they were able to do, I think, is pretty impressive. But what did you think of this one?
I felt like I was going to agree with that sentiment by the time I got to the end of the episode, and I'm probably still on track for that, because it is impressive to make something. I don't know, something so strongly put together that it exists on the Game Boy, right? Mm-hmm. I've found some of the best stuff that is ever made is made within the confines of crazy limitations, and people really surprise. That being said, right, this song is really good. I dig it. I didn't expect that time change. Not time change, but that kind of part where it changes. I'm trying to listen for it now.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, where it's a groove change. I don't know what else, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, it's some kind of groove change, some kind of the vibe changes, but it's a really, really good song. I was gonna ask why haven't we had this on our winter special, but then I realized it was probably because you were aiming to do an episode on, this particular game in general. So, but yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed that one so far.
Awesome. Well, I think there's plenty more where that came from. Let's move on to the next track. Is called Temple Trouble. I was always a big fan of the temple music in Donkey Kong Country. This has a pretty different vibe to it, but it's more energetic than the Donkey Kong Country temple music, if I'm remembering correctly, and it's a lot of fun. So here's Temple Trouble. Enjoy. Temple Trouble, again from Donkey Kong Land, and once again, just really feeling that David Wise vibe. And I really like to talk to David someday, and if I ever interviewed him, asking him about this game's soundtrack in particular has always been top on my list. Like, I really want to know how much he was directly involved in and how much Graham Norgate did. Like, because so many of these songs just sound so his style, and this is definitely one of them. What did you think?
I really like this one a lot. There was a lot of elements to it that I kind of didn't expect, like that part where it trails off, and I guess using something so simple as volume control to make it do that, again, goes back to my comment about limitations. Yeah, I mean, I think it's... sorry, I ran out of gas right there. It's a really great track, though. It's a tempo track. I can certainly hear that. I now get a better idea. I can definitely hear the Wizards and Warriors. I used to love that game, by the way. But it's... yeah, Donkey Kong has always had good music. I don't know if I could sit here and say it's definitely because of David Wise, or like to the music, what gave to the other, you know what I mean? I don't know. I might be babbling, but anyway, really, really good song. You know what it is? I'm not too familiar with, as long as you and I have been doing this show, I'm not too familiar with David Wise. Like, where I go, that's a David Wise track, right? Like, you're a huge fan of David Wise, and I enjoy what I hear, but I don't know it enough to say, yeah, that's it. So for me, it's a little... vague, I guess is the word. I'm not sure. I don't know. For some reason, I've got no words today. I can't. I'm like babbling. It's weird. Anyway, big fan.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really like the energy of this one in Donkey Kong Country. So like the temple stages have a very similar visual design as they do in Donkey Kong Country, but this is such a more upbeat track that I think is a really interesting thing to do to those stages, because they look the same, but they certainly play the same, but they don't sound the same at all, which is a fun take, especially because of because of the limitations of the hardware. The stages are like, you've got to do something different. You can't just replicate exactly what you did on Donkey Kong Country, especially the temple music. So I love this song. I love the energy behind it. I love the like you said, the part where it kind of trails off and comes back in. It's just good stuff.
Like I said, I'm just surprised by some of the limitations, how they circumvent it to give you, these cool tricks and stuff. Right.
Well, continuing on this wonderful adventure that is Donkey Kong Land, we're going to listen to one of my favorite tunes, Deck Trek. So, Deck Trek is the first stage that you play on K. Rool's ship. And this is such a cool stage because a lot of the stuff that they did in these stages were reused in Donkey Kong Country 2. So, like, in Donkey Kong Country 2, one of the newer things you could do was climb on various ropes, and similar to Donkey Kong Jr., and this game did it first. Of course, the version of the song is, if you remember Gangplank Galleon, it's that, like, accordion, happy, jaunty, piratey tune that turns into, like, the big, heavy metal song when you fight King K. Rool. This starts off with that song, but it doesn't go into a hardcore electric guitar jamming part. It just kind of stays jaunty, but also gets kind of like weird and trails off. It's a really interesting track, but I also really, really love the way it loops. Like it comes back together to that one memorable jaunty tune from Donkey Kong Country. So I'm a big fan. This is Deck Trek. Enjoy. That was Deck Trek from Donkey Kong Land. Oh, I love that song. I always loved that King K. Rool theme, just the beginning of it. I've always loved that so very much, and then this is one of my favorite takes on it. I think it's such a cool take on it, such a cool riff on continuing that, but also kind of keeping the darker tones when it's supposed to get all electric guitar heavy, and then the way it so happily loops back and brings you back to the jaunty pirate tune. I just love it.
I mean, what's not to love about this? It's got such a great energy to it, and it's a great melody. It's within the confines of the technology. It's fantastic. It's a great song. I'm just like repeating myself now. Sorry. I don't know. It's really cool though. I would totally like put that on the background and listen to it on loop for like an hour and not even think about it like while I did stuff. And I'd probably make funny dances too, like I'm on the prow of a ship, in Donkey Kong.
Oh. Well, I'm glad you dig it, and I dig it too. And let us move on. Let us move on to the glory that is Pothole Panic. Well, let's see. What do these stages look like? I think the first time you hear this music is in one of the city-style stages, but I feel like that's later in the game. I'm losing. It's been such a long time since I played through this one. Either way, this is a really fun song. It's got a good, almost bouncy vibe to it, but also kind of mysterious. It's neat. Let's give it a listen. Here's Pothole Panic. Enjoy. There you go, a little jazzy Pothole Panic for you. How'd that one grab you?
Jazzy Pothole Panic. Those are 3 words I don't think would ever have gone together in the English language ever.
And yet, here we are.
And yet, here we are, doing a podcast about it. Yeah. That was a really good one. You're right about the bounce. It definitely has a jazz bounce to it. That's the stuff I like listening to when I want upbeat, but if I'm like being creative and writing, I want like the slow, sad piano stuff. But this is not that, is it? It's a really good piece of music put together. I'm so curious if there's been modern takes on this stuff, just because I want to hear some of it. Like I'd be curious to hear this one and the last one as a modern take.
Yeah, I listened to. Somebody did, tried to recreate this in the Super NES game Sound Font, and I don't think they did a spectacular job, so I won't call attention to it in particular. But yeah, I haven't heard many people take on this music with modern covers. I would love to hear Banjo-Kooie tackle some of this someday.
You hear that, buddy?
You hear that? He's not listening. But if he is, please
hear that?
Yeah, this is a fun tune. Again, bouncy, good times. Getting a little bit of that jazz flavor in there. It's nice. It's nice. I like it. Okay, keep going, because why not? This song is called Track Attack. This one actually has quite a cult following. A lot of people really like this song. It's a very interesting song. It's used in stages that are kind of auto-scrolly, right? It's got a much more methodical pace to it, and I think that with I've always found this specific iteration of it to be a bit abrasive, but I feel like with the right instrumentation this could be a truly amazing song. But either way, I really like this one regardless. So here is Track Attack from Donkey Kong Land. Enjoy. you go. That was Track Attack from Donkey Kong Land. A very interesting song, and kind of an earworm. And I think it's a really, really good composition that's held back ever so slightly by its instrumentation. But I don't know how you do it better on this platform. I just think it's a neat song. What do you think?
I can see why that's kind of a fan favorite. That's earwig is earworm. Excuse me, earwig. Earwig sounds completely different. An earworm is definitely the word I would use for that one. Beautifully done, like a nice low end bass kind of that kind of creeping sound, and then this really nice melody on top of it for kind of that day and night thing, just like I don't want to say smashing it together, but like coming together in a way that it presents such a beautiful little track.
Attack.
Whoa. How did I miss that one? I suck. I missed that one. Anyway.
Podcast over.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next
I really like that one. I would love for this game to get remade. I would just love it to death. Because I think there's so many great ideas in this game. Cool level designs, cool character designs, and it's only ever been in this game. Like, they've never really taken the stuff this game did and redone it elsewhere. And it would go against the game's entire story to remake it, which is unfortunate, because the point of the game is that it doesn't look or sound very good. But I think it's a really fun game that's so held back by the technology it's on, because, like, this is a tough game to play. There's so many blind jumps because the screen's just not big enough.
Yeah.
Or so many enemies will just get lost in the leaves in the background because you can't tell the difference between the enemies and the backgrounds. Like, they did a really, really good job of translating this game's style to Game Boy, but it's such a fun game with a lot of fun ideas that I would love to see fleshed out better. Maybe someday. Who knows? Who knows? But right now, we're moving on to Kong Crazy. This is a really fun, high-energy song. I cannot recall what kind of stages that this song happens in, but this song, I think it was a Burger King commercial that used to play when I worked at GameStop that had a spot that reminded me so much of this song. So this song was stuck in my head for like a year and a half when I was working at a GameStop. Because this commercial that kept playing would always remind me of it. And that's my fun side story. Here's Kong Crazy from Donkey Kong Land. Enjoy. go. That is Kong Crazy. And I'm just Kong crazy about that track.
I saw it coming a mile away. You've got me curious. You said it was reminding you of a Burger King commercial?
I'm pretty sure it was Burger King.
I'm so curious now what that was. But
it was a spot in the commercial where there was some piece of the background music that sounded vaguely similar to this song. It wasn't even the same. It was vaguely similar enough that because I was working in a video game store and hearing that it just triggered this in my brain over and over again. There's no way I could possibly find that ad again.
I mean, I'm psychotic. I might be able to find it, but let's move on. Because I think I know what you're talking about. But anyway, that was a really good track. We were talking about energy, some tracks having really good energy. This has a really, really good energy. I like this one a lot. Sure. Definitely a very well put together piece. That main melody is infectious. Very infectious. And again, going back to the idea of the limitations of the tech for the Game Boy, fantastic. Blows it out of the water, really.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. It's wonderful stuff. You know what else is wonderful stuff? Balloon Barrage, our next track.
Ooh.
I mean, come on now. It's Balloon Barrage. That's a great name. Honest to goodness, this is another one of my favorites. This is such a catchy tune, and it's also got a really good energy to it. But it is a really, really catchy tune, and it's another one that just kind of feels very David Wise to me. So I don't know. Again, I don't know who really was responsible for what, but this is Balloon Barrage from Donkey Kong Land. It's a great song. Enjoy. That was Balloon Barrage. And I know, you were probably expecting an 8-bit rendition of 99 Red Balloons, but that's not what this is. And I'd say I wish it was, but I don't, because I think this song is phenomenal as is. I really like this song a lot. I just haven't... I think it's a blast to listen to. What did you think?
I think this soundtrack as a whole so far, what I'm listening to, has got a really great energy. This one, again, very upbeat. That lead is really driving, which I think gives it a lot of its energy. There's a kind of bounce inside of the rhythm section that backs up that front melody really, really well. So you're humming it now.
I am just. I can't not.
It is. But you're right. There a lot of these are earworms. They get really stuck in your brain, and that's the first time I'm listening to it. But I have it in my head too.
Yeah,
so that's
such good stuff.
That's got to account for something, right?
Yeah, and honestly, you know me. There's probably a pretty significant amount of my love for this game that just comes from its soundtrack. Like,
yeah.
If a game's got a really good soundtrack, I will overlook a lot of bad gameplay. And I can't say that there's bad design at play in this, so much as it would be good design on a different platform. But still, I've beaten this game top to bottom a number of times, which is apparently not the most usual thing in the world, because this game is pretty hard, but I was able to overlook everything because of how much I loved the music, I guess. But either way, this music's been sticking with me for years, and I'm so glad we finally covered it on this show. So, this next one is Reef Rampage. This I like a lot. This is this game's take on aquatic ambience, and so this is one that's just a straight adaptation, but it did a really good job of choosing which parts of the song to go with and which ones not to, so it doesn't try to be as ambient as aquatic ambience. So I think it's a really interesting take on it, and they did a great job. Here is Reef Rampage from Donkey Kong Land. There you go. Yeah, so Aquatic Ambience is a much longer song, but it eventually, and it's super, super ambient in the beginning, but eventually that beat kicks in and the song becomes much more structured. And I thought it was a really smart thing to do to just adapt that piece of it, because I think it came out sounding pretty great. The big scale in the beginning is a little rough, but outside of that, I do think this is an excellent translation of this song.
Yeah, that big scale run was a little like, okay, when's it going to end? But I found it interesting. I don't think I kind of sat back and was like, ugh. But I found it very, very interesting because it gave way to that big lead verse passage, whatever you want to call that. And I thought that was amazing. And like how it carries through. I don't feel that this song is very aquatic. I don't know, based on all the other games I've played in my life, it doesn't feel very aquatic, but it's a really, really, really good song.
Yeah, it definitely sounds, I feel like it sounds a lot more aquatic in Donkey Kong Country, and yeah, I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the instrumentation. But regardless of the way it, feels in this one, it's just darn good piece of music. Darn good piece of music. Moving on to Mountain Mayhem. Mountain Mayhem. This is another one that's kind of similar to Balloon Barrage in that it's just kind of a high energy piece. I rather enjoy it, and I hope you do too. Here's Mountain Mayhem from Donkey Kong Land. There you go. There's some Mountain Mayhem for you.
I love a good alliteration.
Right. There's a lot of that in this.
Yeah.
A lot of alliteration and some rhymes all over this soundtrack. Yeah, it's just a fun one.
This to me feels like you're in the mine cart, dipping through on the rails and stuff. More so than maybe Track Attack or something else. But nonetheless, let's try that again.
Yeah, Track Attack was much slower. Like those stages, you're on a thing, a slow-moving track that's like moving around, and you have to like kind of do these tricky jumps while this slow thing is moving around. So yeah, it's I see what you're saying about tracks. I don't know if I explained that well enough. It's definitely not for a minecart type of stage. It's very slow paced with Track Attack.
Yeah, I don't have, like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with this version of the game, but you know, you get very familiar with the stages and the stage styles for these, you know, side-scrolling platformers and stuff. So, but yeah, this felt very much minecart-esque. Yeah, really good. I have yet to hear a track that I'm like, meh.
Well, I don't think you're gonna, because we only got 2 left.
Well, that means there's still 2 chances.
2 chances. Nah, I think you'll dig what we got left. All right, so the next one is I want to say it's got an almost like junk band kind of goofy vibe to it. This one's called Construction Site Fight. This is definitely one of the ones that's in the more like city type stages with the oil barrels and stuff that you jump on. These are tough stages, and this song reminds me of being incredibly frustrated. So let's go ahead and give it a listen. Here's Construction Site Fight. Enjoy. Construction Site Fight. How'd that one grab you?
I can see why you feel like it's maybe a junk band or something. It feels, in a weird way, slapped together. It feels very Balloon Fight to me.
Okay, I can hear that.
But anyway, that's a lot of fun too. It's a little light and what's the word? Just it feels a little too light for something called Construction Fight, though. It's a good song. I just feel like maybe a misnomer. I'm not sure, but it's a good song nonetheless.
Yeah, good stuff. And it's like it's definitely tied, if I remember correctly, to some extremely frustrating stages, which is just good times. This is really towards the end of the game, so it's there's some tough stuff here, but still fun, and an enjoyable piece of music. And that brings us to our last song, which is Boss Battle. This is the Boss Battle music. I know, surprise.
That's wild. I never would have imagined.
It's pretty good stuff. I guess it's a little repetitive, but I can't say that I mind all that much. It's very effective for boss battles. So, here's boss battle music from Donkey Kong Land. Enjoy! go. That's the boss battle music.
I really like that. That might be top 2, if not my favorite, of what we listened to this episode. Had great energy, great drive. I really appreciate the lead melodies, instrumentation. There's a lot of like really great synthesized stuff for these leads, and I just think it's out of this world, some of it.
Yeah, it's a pretty spectacular soundtrack, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it as much as you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't think of a David Wise track that I've never liked. I'll never forget doing the Halloween special and putting Nightmare on Elm Street in front of you and saying, oh, it's by David Wise. And you went, what? Good stuff.
Well, there you go. That's the Donkey Kong Land soundtrack for your approval, for your enjoyment, perusal. I don't know.
I want to see how far you would go with that.
I've run out. I'm all out. Yeah, I'm so glad we finally covered this one. And I can't say that I'm super excited about getting on Donkey Kong Land 2 or 3. Like, Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3, I bought those games, and even though I didn't really like Donkey Kong Country 3 all that much, Donkey Kong Land 2 and 3, I kept wanting to love those games and their soundtracks more than I did, and I just there's something really special about the first Donkey Kong Land being a completely unique experience with just its own story, its own enemies, and it just took things in a very different direction, whereas the other ones are like, here's the portable version of Donkey Kong Country 2. Like, okay, that's neat, but I liked it when it went crazy, went a little different, you know. But yeah, I was really happy to share this soundtrack with anybody who wanted to listen. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And I guess that's gonna leave us off with the end of our episode. Thank you for listening, everybody. That is our show. Join us next time when, if all goes according to plan, we'll be bringing you the 2023 WaveBack Awards. It's been a humongous year for video games, but which ones had the best tunes? We'll decide! I hope so. The WaveBack Awards are a tremendous undertaking, and we're trying our best to get it all done within this month's time. If it looks like it's going to get pushed back to March, then we'll make some sort of announcement and pick another episode for February in the meantime. But we're going to try to aim to get it done in early February. So that's it. Thanks for listening, everybody. We here at the WaveBack Podcast are incredibly grateful to everyone who listens, and we love communicating with you when we can. We have a couple of ways you can do that. There's the Geekade Discord channel, in which we have a WaveBack chat where we frequently discuss all manner of stuff relating to video game music and whatever our next episodes are going to be. Of course, you can always still send us an email at mail@geekade.com, and while you're at it, check out all our social media channels, which you should totally follow, like, and subscribe to if you haven't already. WaveBack and other Geekade podcasts are made possible thanks to the Geekade Patreon page. There, patrons can get access to a monthly podcast topic and recording schedule, get early access to most of Geekade's shows, including this one and more, and if you've enjoyed our podcasts over the years, follow the link in the description and give it a look. We really appreciate it. Finally, as always, be sure to check out all the other great content we have on our site over at geekade.com. So like I mentioned earlier in the episode, we're going to leave you with the title/ending music. The thing about this is, the title screen doesn't loop. It runs through the song, and then right when it's going to loop, it abruptly stops and goes to like attract mode, where it's showing you some gameplay. Whereas the ending, it loops, and it doesn't add any music to it. It just is just delightful. So, I think it's a really great way to end the episode, because it's a really, really catchy and fun song. So, enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.